Good morning. Welcome to the event Social Business in UA implemented with support from the EU, and we've been able to create a real-fledged community. The Ukrainian Forum Budget Makers have heavily contributed to it, and we are really grateful for this possibility to show a good, prosperous future for our partners. It will contribute to creating the social enterprises, will foster new partnerships. I'd like to thank those without whom the project would never happen. I'd like to thank our partners, the delegation of the European Union to Ukraine for their financial support, for their trust in social enterprise development in Ukraine. I'd like to thank CLAB Ukraine, to Impact Hub Odessa, Latvia, startup division from Lithuania. Separate things goes to the universities who implemented our social entrepreneurship training course. We do help. They will continue this training new students in it, which include the social work school at Kiev Mahila Academy, the Leadership and Management Institute, with the Ukrainian Greek Catholic University, the Kharkiv National University of Construction and Architecture. Heartfelt thanks to our governmental partner, the Ministry for Economic Development and Agriculture, the Ministry for Sports and Youth of Ukraine. We have also international projects and organizations like Social Entrepreneurship Project, dealing with innovative mechanism of social entrepreneurship development implemented by the Child Fight Deutschland, the OSCE Coordinator Office, the EU for Bees project, the Euro Project Hub, the 4Bs. Thank you all for your contribution, your invaluable contribution. I'd like to thank big companies, big businesses for their support and advice, their commitments for these 2 years. Svita, Chasopis, Zaporizhstal, Space, Coca-Cola Ukraine, Mavericks Agency. Thank you guys for your wonderful website, Cash and Carry Ukraine, Ubind Ukraine, the EBA. Thank you. And in my last but not least, I'd like to thank our partners from the civic community in Ukraine for their commitment, the Ukrainian Social Academy, the Eastern Europe Fund, the ME School, the Cultural Educational Foundation Libero, the Association of Social Enterprises of Ukraine, Crystal Sense, the Open Yourself movement, the Mariupol Youth Union, Smart Point from Uzhgorod, Community Strengthening Charity Fund, the Quadrat from Vinnytsia, Sumy Partners, Laska Shop, Nechi Tyler, and many, many others. You can see the big community we've been able to accumulate around the project. We are proud for it, and now I'd like to give the floor to Flora Alio, head of the Economic Assistance Program from the EU delegation to Ukraine. Flora, can you hear us? Yes, we hear you, Chloe. Thank you.
to hear that despite the limitation, the team has managed to complete all the tasks, and would like to thank all the partners of the consortium for working so effectively together in this project. And I hope that the strong networks and that the links that have been created by the project during the past few years will be maintained, and that will also help mobilizing and inspiring new generation of social entrepreneurs. It's very impressive to learn that the project that the project has graduated over 30 teams through its ID generation and through its acceleration activities, and that these graduates have already established their social business. We are very happy from the EU side that the support that we have contributed to give has helped your business ideas and ambitions to become a reality. And we are committed to support the small and medium business development in Ukraine, and social business, which combine the commercial activities with doing social good, is a very important part of this work. Social enterprises are an excellent example of an economy that works for the people, which is a high priority for the European Commission. We see growing social entrepreneurship movement in Ukraine, and social business can indeed become a very important part of the Ukrainian SME sector. As a comparison, in the EU, social economy employs about 40 million Europeans, which is the equivalent of almost 7% of the EU working population. So this is a very promising area. And social economy is the driver of social innovation in many countries, and it creates both social and economic value to the community, and it also supports local development. It has indeed a wide dimension and a potential for making strong social and economic impacts into the communities. I hope that all the business models that have been developed during the project will be successful and sustainable, and that they will contribute to making your community more inclusive, more open, and more willing to scale up the impact of social enterprises. We are committed from the EU side to continue the work on social innovation, and we are committed to build on the momentum for social entrepreneurship in Ukraine. And we would like to inform you that we will soon kick off a new project in all Eastern European, Eastern Partnership countries, including Ukraine, and that this project will be aimed at attracting venture philanthropy in the country and at improving the ecosystem for interested investors. There will be more news shortly on this project. For now, I'd like to thank again the project team for their dedicated work and partnership. And I really hope that today's discussion will be very inspiring for all of you, and that this will generate even further innovative ideas for new initiative and partnership. Thank you very much.
Дуже дякую вам, Хлоя.
Thank you so much, Chloe, for your good words, for your high praise of the project team's work. I'd like to give the floor now to the team members of the team who implemented the project. Please welcome Dmitro Havryluk, project coordinator of the project International on Social Business in UAE.
Що ж, друзі, чутно, так? Власне, ми розпочнемо, колеги. Я прошу.
So, dear colleagues, we can start. May I ask my presentation on screen? Before that, well, I have 5 minutes to go, start with. So, let's have the timer on as well. I will give floor to my colleagues as well. The project on social business in UAE is, as Polina has mentioned, has been implemented for more than 2.5 years, and that was quite a time, quite a period, because for that time we had really dozens, if not hundreds, people attending and participating. More than 200 projects were initiated and launched in scope of our social initiatives. We had exceptional partners join us, and I'm going to present them. They will have their chance to speak. I'd like to brief you on key outcomes and outputs of the project. You can see actually our successes in developing entrepreneurial potential of social businessmen. We were able to test the livelihood of social entrepreneurship ideas. 87 projects of social enterprises were launched. We had nice cooperation with Impact Hub Odessa. We had two schools, and my colleague Irina Izmanova will provide more detail on these summer schools that we had, and they were exceptional in terms of their success. My daughter also remembers it. We had 8 hackathons on social business to model social business development trends. We had 152 ideas of social enterprise worked on. We had 2 acceleration programs in social entrepreneurship. We have Darina Belanska, my colleague. She coordinates this direction, and she will tell you more about the results of our accelerator programs and the consequences. We had 2 international conferences. This is the second one. It's a pity we couldn't have it in a physical format, but well, for security, safety reason, security reason, we have to do it that way. And we are definitely for safety of each and everyone. And by the way, we are still keeping this distance between our speakers. You can check it, so Ministry of Public Health Protection can stay cool about it. We had a study tour planned during the project for accelerator program participants, but well, given the COVID quarantine, we had to scrap the plan. But nevertheless, we had a training camp with other partners from Latvia. We have colleagues here via Zoom. They will tell more about that. The project was able to shape the public opinion around social business matters. We have an account, a channel on YouTube, on the Facebook. So we have some motivational videos, about 2 dozen of them, on success stories of social entrepreneurs in Ukraine. To provide better highlights of the topic, please welcome to our YouTube channel, to be motivated, to be enthralled with those short but rather inspiring videos. So, our project was also to build a social business ecosystem in the country. For this, we designed training and methodological materials. For the training, we had a guidebook for trainers on social business development. As Polina Nyukhina said, we had like 3 pilots on the topic in the Ukrainian Greek Catholic University, in the Kiev Academy in Kiev, and Kharkiv Institute of Construction and Architecture. This educational effort will continue. I do know that starting last September, several more universities will we'll have social entrepreneurship courses. And it's really a pleasure for me to announce this. I'd like to thank all the 18 high school professors, uh, Vasil Nazaruk, Artem Karetsky, other trainers who joined the project to spread the word and spread the knowledge on social entrepreneurship. One of the highlights of the projects of potential interest for you is about the green book that we developed for Ukraine. Think of it as a sort of a roadmap on social business development in Ukraine, as a storyline of its successes, and our next step will be to set up a white book on the matter. We are going to present these titles shortly. Our website, Social Business in UA, is probably the only one in the country to have more about social businesses. You can also share your information, but you can learn from it as well. On this website, we have the map of social businesses in Ukraine. We have 51 spots mentioned there. This is not a mandatory thing. You can register, you can skip it, but well, we think that registering there increases communication between peer social entrepreneurs. We also have the so-called Bank of Problems that also offers solutions to these problems. And I think this is a nice roadmap for everyone interested. We also have like consultancies for social entrepreneurs, either beginners or more advanced, and we have experts on board to help you out. We can cover your legal issues or your organizational questions you may want to have. And definitely, social business is a driving force of social changes, an important part of social economy. But I think now it's time to give the floor to our colleagues from Latvia, Maria Povilaite and Diana Lapkis.
Здравствуйте, добрый день.
Hi, morning.
Спасибо, что нас пригласили.
Thanks for having us.
Мария, наверное, понимаем украинский.
We already have started getting a knack in Ukrainian with Marina. We really understood nearly everything. I have to say,
Очень рады нашему общему сотрудничеству, которое длилось уже.
we are really glad to have had this project. We have been glad to have this cooperation effort for nearly 3 years, and we'd like to brief you
Я сейчас поставлю
on what we've done for the period. I'd like to have my presentation on screen. Trying to share my screen, but I don't seem to succeed.
Наверное, будем продолжать так, Мария.
Should we continue like it goes, Maria?
Извините, мы можем сделать share screen для презентации? Или мы...
Could we still share the presentation screen? Yes, you can. I confirm.
Да, запустилось.
И что мы прошли за эти 3 года?
So this is the description of our joint work for the past 3 years. We researched into the social entrepreneurship law adopted in Latvia back in April 2018. And I think it was quite of interest for our Ukrainian partners. We were able to do quite good and substantial work on the matter. We also looked into the European examples of legislation in the area of social entrepreneurship, how these legislative provisions affected the adoption of applicable Latvian law and how it might be useful for Ukraine.
Университетскую программу, да, то есть методологию, свою
We
методологию.
also presented our own methodology for a university training course, our vision of how this program in social entrepreneurship might look like at universities. It's really nice to see it became a part of the bigger green book design in Ukraine. It's nice to see that we've made it as a part of a bigger educational training program. We presented the concept of social business training in conditions of accelerator programs. We've been doing this in Latvia for 6 years in a row. And we were glad to share our experience that you can use in Ukraine. From what I know, you already have a nice program called C-Lab in Ukraine. I do hope, though, that our synergy throughout this time period of 3 years also contributed. Our work in 2019 included an international conference in Kiev, which was an offline conference. Yeah, it was the third year of the project, but we would like to have another conference, but you know the reasons why we couldn't. Anyway, we were able to discuss examples of Ukrainian social enterprises in Ukraine. I was able to participate in a hackathon in Kiev. We had interviews that we gave to Ukrainian media to describe the Latvian experience in social business development. These are some just glimpses of what we did. Our work in 2020, it was predominantly online. There were some clear benefits in terms of time saving of it, but definitely we missed dearly on human interaction. So we tried to create an online visit to social entrepreneurs, social businesses in Latvia, in Lithuania. I think it was really interesting, and our Ukrainian colleagues were quite keen to look into the experience of Latvian and Lithuanian colleagues. They had like sort of a virtual tour there. So we were able to have 6 webinars in 2020. Maybe Maria will add something.
Как партнеров проекта
I'd like to say that being the partners of the project, we got a lot of help and we found it very useful because it helped us solve the theoretical tasks that we had for the first year. When we did the research on the social entrepreneurship law in Latvia, and you know, when we were working on this assignment, it was very beneficial to ourselves as well, because we were able to focus on the methodology of the social law fostering. And you know, we explained to our Ukrainian colleagues this process in detail. Since we had to dig up some protocols and some papers, and you know, we found it very curious taking part in the process. And of course, when you look at the similar laws in other countries, that was also of help. Latvian law, the task force that has been working on Latvian law was mostly focused on the respective legislative piece in Denmark. But of course, we were trying to find the other examples to follow. So we enjoyed it a lot, helping Ukrainian colleagues. And we wanted to show them what would be the right way to design the law for social entrepreneurship. What are the do's and don'ts in the process, how to overcome certain barriers. Since we are not actually the lawmakers in our country, we are an NGO, but this process, this is a process we were involved in, and this was a lengthy process, and it was quite complex. Dan Lapkis is a trainer of social entrepreneurship in one of Latvian universities. And to have an opportunity to work more on this training course and to find some prospects for this training course and share it with Ukrainian colleagues, that was a unique experience. And even when we were describing the concept of the accelerator, we've been working in for 6 years already. And the methodology that we kept on improving throughout those years, that when you describe all of that, you take totally different look at it. You see it from a different perspective. So we are very happy that we were able to get involved and work on the process together with the colleagues.
Очень приятные слова.
Anna and Maria, thank you for your kind words, and I would like to thank you once again for your input, for your contribution, and your support was highly appreciated. I would like to remind the participants of our conference that everything Diana mentioned, the analysis of Latvian legislation, we have the information on that on our website. It's available both in Russian and in English. Besides, you can find the guidelines for trainers in social entrepreneurship course authored by our panelists. And now I would like to pass on to my colleague, Regina Urasmanova. She's the project coordinator at Impact Hub Odessa. Regina is a representative of a wonderful, unique Impact Hub Odessa that is highly supportive of social enterprises. And Regina, here's to you. Hi, can you hear me? Yes? I would like to tell you about the school that we had. We had it last summer in Odessa in July, midsummer, and I would like to say that Odessa is the best destination to hold the trainings in summertime. We were having trainings daily, and we were able to enjoy our communication and also enjoy the city. We wanted to train the skills that would be of practical use, like marketing, for instance, and other issues. We invited different speakers so that the training participants is everything okay with the sound? Right, I'll continue. So we invited various speakers so that our training participants could ask questions and not just get the theoretical information that is of no value. So they were able to ask the questions that were of practical nature, for instance, how everything could be legally documented. And we also had the ideation for environmental issues. It was important for us to explain to the participants that there are environmental issues that require our attention and that this should be solved. So we created the environmentally friendly and eco stickers, and we walked around the town and stuck them on various surfaces. And the citizens were quite surprised. They were not expecting us to walk around the city and just to stick those eco labels everywhere. Well, I guess that's it from me, and that's all I wanted to share at the moment. Thank you. I just wanted to add that Regina forgot to mention that during this environmental fest, there was a other part to it. The participants took videos of them sorting waste, plastic, for instance, and some were putting plastic bottles in containers for plastic, and you have quite a few of those in Odessa. And I would like to say that the first and the second summer schools were different, but they were very intense. For 5 days, the participants were engaged in the training, but they were not overloaded with it. They were growing. They were growing as entrepreneurs who were just the beginners. And I would like to thank Impact Hub for your support, and I would like to thank you for the introductions you made to the local businessmen and businesswomen, because those were people who have already tried doing business, and they could share some tips and tricks of the trade with their colleagues who are just making their first steps. And now I would like to give the floor to Irina Fomenko, if she's with us. She's the chairperson of the board of an NGO. Ms. Irina, I don't want to spoil your intervention. I just would like to pass on to you. Thank you, Dmitro. I hope that the cooperation with our fund was quite useful to you, and I would like to tell you what was of interest to us, and hopefully of use to the citizens of Kharkiv. First and foremost, I'm very happy that we took part in the project throughout the whole project, and we also took part in the designing of this project that's been in the making for about a year. And I believe that is one of the prerequisites of the efficient project, this thorough preparation. Our NGO has been in the project for more than 2 years. We have been working in 8 cities, and we had hundreds of experts participating in the events, and 3 participants of Kharkiv Hackathon made it to Accelerator. We had idea banks and ideation events, and finally we had the hackathon. They were very fascinating projects that made it to the Accelerator, but I think we do not have time to talk about each of them. As you know, they all deserve your attention, and you can find information about them on the website that was mentioned by Dmitro. But there is one project I would like to mention in particular. That's Project Acoustic UA, and we know that that's the project that has been implemented. That's the call center for persons with visual impairments. It's not the project anymore. It's a social enterprise. It's the organization that works in Kharkiv and trains people, trains employees. It's fully functioning as the call center, and persons with visual impairments were employed, and they improved the financial situation for their families. And that's the success already. And I believe for this kind of story like this, the project should be in Ukraine. And happily, we have quite a few projects like that. And our NGO, Kharkiv Professional Development, has been implementing the project for youth and teenagers and for engaging them into social entrepreneurship. This is the project that was started in Kharkiv, and it's been scaled up to Donetsk and Luhansk regions. And this year we'll have a project in Donetsk, Luhansk, and maybe even more regions of Ukraine, thanks to online platforms. And the members of this project actually became the experts in our hackathon, and they joined the process of designing of the training course, and also they helped the social enterprises. That was a wonderful experience because we did not have that many experts in social entrepreneurship, and those who actually have experience. And 20 experts were engaged in Kharkiv hackathon. But from experts, big businesses like Metro and Coca-Cola company are also interested in social enterprises. For instance, in Kharkiv, and not only in Kharkiv, they provided funding for big events, means of covering for catering, for coffee breaks, and not only. And they contributed not only financially. Employees of Metro and Coca-Cola company are very much interested in the project. And it means that the project is impactful because many people in Ukraine have no idea what social entrepreneurship is. And even if they know what it is, they cannot tell the difference from corporate social responsibility, for instance. That is why there was also awareness raising effort, and raising awareness is very important. And I believe that our project was successful with that task fulfillment. And there is one more indirect outcome of the project. The bottom-up approach is the notion that I have very dear to my heart. And it resulted in quite positive outcomes for me. This year, there will be the network of CSOs established, and this was the bottom-up approach. You can find the information about this initiative at the HURT website, but this bottom-up, this is the key. This was the foundation for that effort. It means that it was not financed by some other organization. It was not established by local governments, for instance. It was it is union of CSOs. A few dozens of CSOs decided to create the network, and this is the real grassroots initiative. I think that I have to close my impression now. Thank you for your kind words, and thank you for your contribution. And now I would like to pass on from Kharkiv to Kiev. Darina Kulanska, my colleague, project manager at Scilab Ukraine. She's one of our partners, as Anna Halevska was also engaged in the early stages of this project in 2018, 2019, and in 2020. A big part of work has been done, the accelerator and the acceleration efforts, and Darina will tell us more about that. Can you hear me? Good morning. Can you hear me? Yes? All right. Everything's fine. Now I would like to show you my presentation, and now I would like to say that in the next 5 minutes I will try to tell you about 2 years of training of social entrepreneurs. And I would like to say that we started with 2-day events that were called the idea garages that were held all over Ukraine in all 24 cities. These were the events for people who had ideas, and they got together, they tested the availability of their ideas, and after that, we've held 8 hackathons in 8 different cities of Ukraine, with the applications coming from those who took part in idea garages and also those who have not taken part in those events previously. What about my slides? I would like to have my slides on the screen because there is important information there. So at the hackathons, we were working on the business models, and we were testing whether the idea that the participants had before the hackathon is actually viable. Okay, thanks. I have my presentation now. So you can see that the garage of ideas and the hackathons had about 1,000 participants. Those are people who actually care about social issues and also environmental issues. Those are people who actually care. At those hackathons, as well as garage ideas, the experts were engaged who assisted participants in business model preparation, at least rough business model, and to assess its viability. And at the end of hackathons, the accelerator took place, and this was the 4-month project, and it consisted of 4 modules. I will tell you a bit more about it in a second, but I would like to say that all those who took part in all the previous stages, Ideas Garage, Hackathon, and then joined Accelerator, their application forms were of much serious nature than of those who didn't take part in the previous trainings. And now a few words about statistics, and it turned out quite interesting. The gender priorities for those people who actually care about social issues and environmental issues goes to women, because 70% of participants were women and 30% were men. A bit more on statistics. Who are those people? Who are those superheroes who applied and who got training and started their own businesses? I would actually divide them into 3 categories. Those were charitable organizations. And it makes sense because currently such organizations are longing for sustainable work. They want to solve the issues they are working with in a sustainable way, and they don't want to be dependent on donor funds and grant funds. The second category, these are the entrepreneurs, and they are with the heart for me over here, because those are the entrepreneurs who actually care about the environment and the surrounding they live in. They wanted to foster change by developing their business. And the third group that was quite active, students, active youth, who want to start something of their own, who want their own business, but they already think not just about making money. They are already conscious about the fact that they can change this world for better. They want to make it a better place. The projects that were submitted to hackathons and to Accelerator could be also divided into few areas. The employment for people with disabilities, employment of people from marginalized groups, production, various workshops, for instance, making wallets or making bags. and the projects that were aimed at environmental issues solution. This three-staged model proved its efficiency as we found out that when you go through this whole process and you start with telling your friend that I have an idea, how can we change the situation that we see and we are unhappy about? And then you develop the business model around that idea. And after that, you start learning and you are trained to let your business fly. And this training was provided with a huge number of experts and also mentors. We call them mentors, pushers. Those were the ones who assisted the teams with their business models, designing and the testing of those business models. They were also experts who provided consultations and they took part in business speed datings. Those were 30-minute individual consultations where participants had the chance to talk to six up to seven consultants during one day. And they were experts who are also lecturers. They have expertise in the area they work in, and they provided theoretical knowledge for the accelerator. And I don't know if you can see it on the slide. You have the list of subjects. These were the subjects that were covered, and we paid attention to each of it. And this were the subjects that we taught during 4 modules. So we invited people with expertise in business. And also we invited representatives from marketing agencies and representatives from business sector to teach our participants about this. And now let me tell you about the outcome of all of these stages. You know that according to the global statistics, out of those teams that finish incubators or accelerator trainings, from 1 to 3% only make it to the launch. So it means that 1 in 10 of the training participants actually start their own businesses. And you know, in our ideas garage and the hackathons, they were all important, and we had 40 teams participating and 10 enterprises as a result were started from scratch. 5 enterprises launched new products, and 5 enterprises are at the moment in the process of preparing for launch. And you know, that is quite a remarkable result. And for those who believe that it is possible, for those who know that if you prepare properly, you can start your own business that will inspire change, you can check the guidelines with the top 50 ideas for starting social enterprises. These guidelines were prepared after the hackathons, and they are based on the findings of hackathons. They contain not just the ideas, let's recycle waste, for instance. They also contain the information of the business model that has already been tested. So just go through this guideline and find inspiration there and just go ahead with your business. Why should you do that? Because sometimes you live under the circumstances when idea is just an idea, and if you do not do anything, the idea cannot be implemented on its own. These guidelines are also found in the website on the website Social Business in Ukraine, which is a very valuable resource, and you can find inspiration over there. And I would like to say that one of the very important outcome of our training program was the creation of this circle of co-thinkers who keep in touch until today, who share their experience. And that was very important during the pandemic. They are supportive of each other, and this is the growing community that's been shaped as a result. So, I believe that these are very positive results, and they are actually remarkable, especially 25% of businesses being started.
І хотів би також наголосити, друзі, о 10-й годині у нас
I'd like to remind you, my friend, that we're going to have a section, our first panel at 10 on the White Book of Social Entrepreneurship in Ukraine. This is an analytical piece designed based on the project. Valery Kokot will present. We'll also have representatives from the Ministry of Economy, the Ukrainian Parliament, and our guest speakers from Ireland and Brussels. And I'd like to give the floor to our beautiful Natalia to present the first prize draw for social entrepreneurs. Hi.
Я займаюсь роздачею подарунків. Отож, соціальні підприємці, які виросли, народилися і виросли в рамках нашого проєкту Social Business in UA за підтримки Європейського Союзу, підготували для вас кілька подарунків, які ми, звичайно, розіграємо. У мене на столику ви можете бачити приклади цих подарунків, що саме ми розіграємо. І головне питання – як можна стати учасником? Отож, для того, аби стати учасником розіграшу, вам потрібно буде разом зі мною зараз пройти невеличкий квест Фейсбуком. Хоча б колись ця соціальна мережа має приносити нам користь. Отож, зайдіть на сторінку у Фейсбук. У Фейсбуці знайдіть сторінку «Соціальне підприємництво». На цій сторінці знайдіть подію, яка називається «Міжнародна конференція УФБ Social Business in UA». Перейдіть на цю подію, і в цій події ви знайдете розділ «Дискусія». От саме в розділі «Дискусія» уже опублікований перший пост про наш розіграш. Під цим постом ви залишаєте правильну відповідь. Як ми знаходимо переможця? Серед множинних правильних відповідей за допомогою програми Randomizer ми обираємо одну людину, яка отримує приз. Який же приз ми розігруємо? Перший приз, який ми розігруємо, це цілющий хвойний спрей від кедрів України. Особливо актуальний у осінню пору. Що можна робити з цим хвойним спреєм? По-перше, на жаль, вам не передається аромат через камеру, але як тільки ми відкрили цю подарункову коробку, так, тут повністю вирос нібито кедровий ліс. Настільки сильний і класний запах. Якщо у вас раптом починається застуда, першить у горлі чи у носі, чи починається якась епідемія, не будемо називати яка, ви можете використовувати кедровий спрей. Якщо у вас все класно, ви можете його використовувати для того, аби зволожувати свою шкіру і залишатися красивими. Ну і для найбільш актуальної інформації для соціальних підприємців, якщо ви знаходитесь постійно в стресовому стані, ну, як і всі ми останні півроку, то ви можете видихнути за допомогою ароматерапії з запахом, з ароматом кедру. Отож, головне питання – як виграти? Дати відповідь на нашу загадку. Відповідь ви можете дати у розділі «Дискусія нашої події», там вже опублікований пост. І отож, увага, наше перше запитання, наша загадка. Допитливі люди постійно намагаються вгадати, в якій валюті вигідніше тримати свої заощадження і не боятися за обвал курсу, в який її потрібно здати і коли знову закупити. Але є валюта, яка з кожним роком обов'язково лише дорожчає і зростає в ціні, міцнішає. Більше того, вона сама себе примножує, і разом з нею множиться користь для людини і природи. про що йде мова. Отож, повторимо питання ще раз. Є валюта, яка з кожним роком примножує сама себе і обов'язково зростає в ціні. Про що йде мова? Відповідь на це питання ви залишаєте в коментарях у розділі «Дискусія» у нашій події, яка називається «Міжнародна конференція УФБ Social Business in UA». І серед правильних відповідей у кінці дня ми оберемо переможця. Переможець отримує, я нагадую, кедровий спрей. Актуальна, класна штука, ну і крутий аксесуар у вашій сумці. На цьому у мене завершується моя перша невеличка сесія з приводу подарунків і приємностей. І знову передаю вас у освітнє море нових чудових знань. До нових зустрічей!
in Ukraine is somehow developing in a situation where we have no term or definition, actually, official one, what social entrepreneurship is, which might be beneficial for both the agents, participants, and for the government. Anyway, the social entrepreneurship is already an important component of the overall economic development and social development of the country. If we check for international experience, we will see rather important categories related to social enterprise, the economic criteria and the social criteria. In the majority of cases, social entrepreneurship is immediately linked to production of goods, services, that is, they are immediate economic agents participating in economic processes. These enterprises are created on a voluntary basis by citizens themselves, without any nudge, without any forced measures on them. There are some risks, particularly economic risks, involved in social enterprise existence and development, because these operate based on the goodwill of their members. In the majority of countries we looked into, such enterprises have some hired staff, not big numbers of them, but still. And they rely more heavily on just goodwill helpers who help them out, who work with them without any remuneration. Such social enterprises emerge based on private initiative of individual citizens who join around the ideas, the visions of situation, the visions of the problems they desire to resolve. These enterprises, in terms of, I would say, voting power, if you want, they are predominantly based on principle one participant, one vote. Social enterprises, by the very nature of theirs, are participatory ones. So both rank and file staff members and the management are effectively individual citizens. That is, they are democracies in the most raw form in terms of decision making, in terms of daily operations. In the majority of countries we looked into, and in the majority of other countries as well, for the most part, social enterprises are non-profit, not-for-profits, that nevertheless have possibility of doing business like normal companies in some respects, and they have some clearly stated objectives of their existence, and they're mostly aimed at resolving some most relevant and burning problems plaguing their communities. They often call upon other commercial companies, asking them to be more to adopt more corporate responsibility related, social responsibility related stance. We also looked into some priorities, social enterprise development. Some of these priorities, there are 5 of them. First, promoting the benefits of social entrepreneurship for the society. Another priority is developing legal regulatory framework for social enterprise development. Third, governments have to contribute to sustainable development of such enterprises. Another next priority is about providing access for these social enterprises, access to markets, There should be some surveys and researches carried out among social enterprises to see prospects of their better development, which is the last priority. Coming back to the first priority regarding the promotion of social enterprise among the public in the society, this is closely linked to the development of national policies, related policies, also youth policies, if you want, because we need to see an educational component of the matter included in education and training programs starting from schools. Such training models would be a boon also for vocational education and training. It would be advisable to have a dedicated specialty, social entrepreneurship, as a particular discipline to be taken. Social enterprise development, social business development should be part of programmatic document strategies designed by amalgamatic communities. Another possibility of drawing more attention to social enterprise is designing targeted programs of social enterprise development. In terms of visibility of social enterprises among the public, we need to speak about the communication information channels. You can see them on this slide, and this exactly says how we can use this communication channel to promote social enterprises and expose the range of problems they face. This could be the sort of attention that social enterprises will benefit from at every level, from the national to regional to community level. And there is a dedicated international holiday, special day for social enterprise, which is 3rd and 4th, I think, of November each year. Speaking of legal regulatory framework, we need to start by recognizing what sort of legal regulations we might need for social businesses to prosper. In one of the annexes to the White Book, we have a selection of some framework principles that might have been viably included in the overall national regulatory framework in the coming 2 years. This could also feed some strategies of social enterprise development to enhance its role. It could be a nice component to be added to regional and local development programs, and definitely local development programs could benefit from it. In terms of access to affordable funding, some social enterprises are producing goods, services. For them, some compensation mechanisms could be instituted at the local level by, say, providing possibilities of repaying some loans that they get, either in terms of the principal or the interest, and other sorts of incentives. There are already actually some programs aimed at supporting such social businesses. In terms of social enterprise financing priority, I think such priorities should be components of annual international technical assistance programs, so that investors and donors know better about the channels on which the money accumulated from international donors and supporters will be used by the government. It could be in the form of a program like affordable loans, 5, 7, 9% interest, other such programs. Another important step in providing sustainable funding of social enterprise is the participatory budget lines dedicated to social enterprise development. Speaking about access to markets, there are two important indicators here. At the national level, it might be possible to involve social enterprises in catering to social demand and social orders. Also at the level of the government and the connection with the EU integration efforts, we could look at guaranteed contracts uh, provisioned by applicable EU directives, and probably the government could have a look at that and how social businesses could be involved in terms of social business related services delivery. Many times we see these services going parallel and being similar by nature to those offered to regular commercial companies. And these services should be highlighted more by the government via, for example, the business application with the related components. Should include some consultation and training support for regular companies, for social businesses. Regarding research and surveys in social entrepreneurship areas, there is a need to look into those types of surveys that are carried out with government funds, public funds. Social enterprises would only benefit from it. It might be interesting to create a registry of social enterprises. We should also develop our cooperation with international organizations working in the field of social entrepreneurship and promoting their experience. In my closing remark, I'd like to tackle several points that are of great interest for social entrepreneurs and the public. This is about the definition of it and the one that might be used in Ukraine. If we check the criteria I've already mentioned, I think that's the most popular form of social enterprise organization. This is a CSO, civic society organization, or public association. And these organizations can be included into the registry of non-profits, not-for-profit organizations. Could be one of the characteristic indicators. You should know that social enterprises may not engage in any sort of activity potentially or actually detrimental for the country, for the public health, whether it is like, I don't know, strong spirits production or handling of tobacco products, etc. I think actually it merits a good discussion on this specific topic, and probably, well, it's a matter of having more questions from the rest of the public and those interested in the topic, and probably we'll have to find answers together. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Valery, for your presentation of the white book, for your concise yet wide overview of those areas in which social enterprises might flourish, also about your exposure of the topic of desired and needed governmental support of social enterprise development. And we continue with our panel discussion, which is about, again, I may remind you, the white book of social enterprise development in Ukraine, and we are to hear many more opinions, visions, and ideas also from representatives of the executive, of the legislature, Actually, the very early efforts to introduce social enterprise started about 7 years ago in 2013. We've been trying to institutionalize them, but actually, not a single organization has been quite successful in designing anything similar to that white book.
Це безпосередньо
As we are presenting the white book, the finalized one today, it might be interesting to hear what the Ministry of Economic Development, for example, has to say about this book. Let us hear from Svetlana Gladchenko
економічного розвитку. Будь ласка, пані Світлана,
from the Ministry for Economic Development.
для вашої промови.
You have 10 minutes. Morning, dear colleagues. Hope you can hear me well. Sorry for the poor communication we have at the office, but well, I try to speak as short as I can. I am Svetlana Gladchenko. I work at the Department of Regulatory Policies and Enterprise Development at the Ministry for Economy, Trade and Agriculture. For the short time of my work here, I was able to check the results of the work of done by the Ukrainian Forum of Benefactors, also specifically in regards of social enterprise and its development. We had the Green Book, now we have the White Book as a refined, finalized version, and a set of recommendations, particularly to us as government authorities. This is, by the way, a part of a set of measures in the strategy of small and medium businesses development until 2020. Yes, this is the final year of the strategy implementation, yet despite of that, some aspects remain, some questions remain, and we also have other strategic documents where this topic stands prominently. So we are not new to the topic, to the notion. We have no doubts about the relevance of social enterprise and its development, and we do understand the need to design a set of specific steps to promote it and to have it properly enshrined in the legal regulatory framework of Ukraine. Regarding this specific white book, it really provides us an insight, an analysis of the current situation with social enterprise development in Ukraine, and it also provides some rather specific recommendations as to ways of its further development. For us, as government administration, public administration officials, it was really important to see lots of examples pertaining to national policies of social businesses support from other countries. And it was also interesting to see a variety of business models of social enterprise development from other countries, because this analysis definitely helps us to identify some specific steps to further support social enterprise in Ukraine. The White Book also contains a regional analysis of rather interesting regional and other programs of social business development, also on a wider scale in terms of small and medium business development, and we see some points raised, which is beneficial actually. Some really working proposals that I'd like to point out as important for us in terms of their implementation. I would mention the very notion of social enterprise, social business operators, because really, as it has been mentioned, we have no formal definitions of these terms. as per in the legislation, and we need really to formalize this. There is a rather constructive suggestion on including certain features of social enterprise into the registry of not-for-profit organizations, which will help better understanding specifics of these of their operations and the scope of problems they are facing, because it will refine our own ways in which we might help them. Some of the priority steps that we have envisioned in the ministry, based on this white book and based on these outputs, include further development of conceptual tenets of really sensible regulation of the sector, not to have any additional administrative burden, rather to offer like support framework for them. And definitely will have to work together with colleagues on that. In other matters, we'll have to look into further potential steps, and who will be responsible for designing them, because it will be easier to track what has been designed, how these recommendations are being implemented, who's in charge of them. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our colleagues for this fully trained, fully fledged research. Definitely the first in-depth research into the topic of social enterprise. It is really very useful for us, so we do hope to cooperate further on that.
Світлано, чи ви мене чуєте?
Thank you, Svetlana. Can you hear me?
А скажіть, будь ласка, чи
Yes, I
це
can hear you.
ознайомлення з білою книгою?
After you have looked through the white paper,
Які не враховані
have you noticed something that
для
was
того, щоб
overlooked in it?
включити соціальне підприємництво в національну
Something that
концепцію
should be added in
соціального
order to get social entrepreneurship included into the national concept in Ukraine? Is there something we need to work on in addition? From your point of view, being on the managerial position, being the representative of executive authority, what should we work on in addition? Thank you for your question. You know, in my opinion, the white paper contains quite in-depth research. It contains full information, and as I mentioned, I believe that it's the in-depth research, and I believe that it's the proper analysis. The only thing to work on is the further steps. We know that there are recommendations, and we understand how to proceed, but we still need more details so that we could explain that to other stakeholders and central authorities, so that they could also get involved in the next actions taking. For instance, the Ministry of Education, if we speak of some training programs, or the Ministry of Culture, for instance, from the point of view of awareness raising. Well, you understand that all of that should be made more specific. And you know that that is more of our work, but we hope that our colleagues would support us. Thank you, Ms. Svetlana. And now I would like to give it back to Valery to comment on that, as he's one of the authors of the white paper. Thank you for your comments. It was very nice to hear your high esteem from the Ministry of Economy. At the same time, we understand that we do not have a social entrepreneurship policy in Ukraine, and that we need the concept for social entrepreneurship policy implementation that would enable the legal framework, preparation, and the further steps. And I could say that you can count on our findings, so that we could prepare more pieces that would contribute to the overall concept, and that later on could be submitted according to the procedure that is described in Annex 4 in accordance with Ukrainian law. Thank you. We are ready to cooperate. Thank you, Ms. Svetlana. And now I would like to give the floor to the representative of the legislative branch, namely Alexander Sanchenko, member of Ukrainian Parliament.
Пане Олександре, сподіваюся, ви мене добре
Mr.
чуєте.
Alexander, I hope you can hear me well, and I would like to hear from you
І ваша оцінка
with regard to your esteem of the white paper and maybe some comments in terms of improvement.
Чутно, Василь, вітаю. Валерію, вітаю.
I hope you can hear me well. Hi, everyone. Hello, Vasily. Hello, Valery. To begin with, I would like to say that before I took office in Parliament, I had quite a few debates with Vasil on social entrepreneurship. So that's the topic that is of my personal interest. And I am, the ambassador with experience in the Parliament, the ambassador of social entrepreneurship. And my impressions of the white paper. Regarding that, I should say that this year we have the informal group of MPs being formed who are in favor of social entrepreneurship, including Irina Rozova, Tatiana Tsiba, Anastasia Radina, and Lada Bulach. So we were looking forward to the white paper being presented so that we could find out how to formalize our work further. The only thing that we agreed on at the moment it is that there is a need in legal regulation of this issue. So we are counting on the engagement of the social entrepreneurs themselves in terms of what the legislation should look like. And what's also important from the point of view of content, I know that there are some debates with regard to what should be in the law and what should not be included into the law. But the thing that I believe is true, advocating another law, the law on youth policy, I can exemplify it with the youth policy and youth centers. Since it is not included in the legal framework at the moment, the youth centers are stripped of the right to additional support. They are off the charts in terms of policy making process. That is why I believe that it is important to make it formal, at least. Having read the white paper, I see that at least there are 10 options of how that could be done. And I should say, first and foremost, that we need to have the community. We need to have the community reaching consensus and having the common understanding of social entrepreneurship and its respective law. As you know, the MPs have various tasks, and if one deputy group is in favor of one version of the law and the other one is in favor of a different one, then we will reach no result. So I believe that we should find common grounds, and I know that the most heated debate pertain to the notion itself, to the definition itself, but that is still a step forward for the industry in general. I wish social entrepreneurship was an industry, and I think that with the efforts of Western NIS Enterprise Fund, Vasilios Ruka, and other colleagues and foundations that are aiming at development of social entrepreneurship require additional support in terms of resources and they require additional support in general. And there should be the definition in the law. So One thing that I would like to change, that is something I noticed with my colleagues who are social entrepreneurs themselves from my past life. I see that there is a problem of scaling up a social enterprise. So as we prepare the transcript of the white paper, by the transcript I mean the interpretation of it, the summary of it in a comprehensible language. I believe that if a social enterprise or NGO that is engaged in social enterprise has an order that amounts to more than 1 million hryvnia, they are supposed to pay VAT. And you know that is the cap and that is the barrier preventing that from growing. And one more thing that we noticed, another barrier we had in the past, NGOs would not get loans from the banks, and Vasil can prove me right. And I know that in the European countries, NGOs that are engaged in social entrepreneurship, they are entitled to loans from the banks, and the loans they get, the more opportunities they have for scaling up their business. So these are the issues that should be reflected at least somewhere, if not in the book. Summing it up, when I took my MBA course 5 years ago, when I took that course, I realized what is the value of long-term green paper, white paper, and there are not so many policies that are based on high-quality research that have been prepared by a wide array of experts. So I would like to express my gratitude to those who supported this research and those who carried out this research, because that is the groundwork for high-quality policy. I would like to say that we, as members of the parliament, and I'm the representative of the parliament today because, because of the upcoming elections, my colleagues are pretty busy right now. So we are ready to take into consideration concerns of the experts and of the community. So we are very much interested of preparing the law which would be of benefit to the social enterprises. So I expect that the co-authors of white paper and the expert community would take further steps. Alina Bacharnikova is assisting me in this work. So be sure that all the important things would be passed on to me. I take into account what Lina says, and I would like to thank once again those who are working on this white paper. And in summer I wanted to have it on a fast track, but white paper, this is the right step ahead. Thank you, Alexander. Now I would like to have sort of to comment. Thank you, Alexander, for your comments. The definition of social entrepreneurship is very important, and the definition of social enterprise is very important when it is considered not as the notion that exists in the policy of the country, but the notion that exists in the legal sector. Concept is prepared to look into the new approaches that could be used in the Ukrainian community in the short run. So we have plans for 2021-2023 to see how effective that would be. And yes, your recommendations with regard to the loans opportunities for the social enterprises for sustainable financing the point you made about the civil society unions and civil society organizations. I took it note and we will work on that in addition. And thank you for mentioning the right way to lawmaking process, which is by means of preparing green papers, white papers, the policies that should be discussed in public and later on to be adopted. As you know, all the movements are based on the principles one member, one vote. This is for cooperatives. And recently we passed a law on cooperatives, and that's the principle that is envisaged by that law. And yet, in the founding charter of cooperative, another principle of voting is also provided for. And it means that if there is a big landowner who invested more in the equity of the company, has more votes in the decision-making process. So that's something to be avoided, and that's what we already have in the law. At least that's in the law on the cooperatives. And thank you for your comments. We will take them into consideration. Thank you, Alexander, for making time to join our discussion. And also thank you for your readiness to support the development of social entrepreneurship in Ukraine at the legislative level. Thank you. And now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Ivan Kamenko, who is the representative of Egalite International Civil Society Organization, and I would like to hear from him about the impressions of a white paper. I know that Egalite is the CSO that's been working in parallel or jointly on social entrepreneurship promotion in Ukraine, and we are interested in your perspective. Thank you. I hope you can hear me well. First of all, I would like to say that it's an impressive work that social business in UA did, and I should say that this is there's a very significant accomplishment for Ukraine that is summarizing all the previous efforts, and that gives real suggestions on how to get social business as a category in legal scene. And I'm very happy that attention is paid to promotion, to education. But I have just two comments on my part. It's not a note. It's something which I do not fully agree with, if I may. First of all, it pertains to the definition of a social enterprise itself in the category of state policy and the functioning of civil society organizations and civil society unions. In our opinion, that pretty much narrows the types of social enterprises that are included. And you know, most social enterprises are working as individual entrepreneurs. And you know, if we have the support from the government that would only cover civil society organizations, non-profits, that would mean that some social businesses would be divested of the assistance. And one more remark with regard to the definition. The authors stated that one of the priorities for the state policy include the conducive conditions for commercial loans being provided to social enterprises. But you know, those loans could be provided they are later on returned, and that means profits should be made by social enterprises. There may be some barriers from commercial banks with regard to actually granting these loans. And I would like to say that there are some initiatives that restrict the rights of the civil society organizations and civil society unions. A few draft laws are in the parliament, and the last law envisage that those legal entities that are somehow related to civil society organizations are not allowed to be on the simplified taxation system. And it means that might be detrimental to the social organizations, the civil society organizations. But I believe that still we have something to have with, we have something to create the common vision. I would like to underscore that social business, even though it is not covered by the regulatory framework and it is not high on the agenda in the media, it still has great work in Ukrainian society from the point of view of economics and from the point of view of social work. And we have the EU component, EU for youth, for social entrepreneurs in Moldova and Ukraine. And we conducted our own research to find out what is the social business in Ukraine and how it works actually in Ukraine, and what are the pathways to improve the conditions of our first attempt to make calculations for the social business in Ukraine were just estimates, and estimates were prepared based on analytical sources analysis, based on our surveys, and also by means of mathematic and economic forecasting. And actually, we have received quite interesting figures. According to some experts, there are about 1,000 social enterprises in Ukraine, but 26% of those are registered as individual entrepreneurs. But I would like to say that almost 82% of individual entrepreneurs have MOUs signed with civil society organizations, so social organizations. And it means that over 56% of social enterprises in Ukraine are created with the help of civil society sector. Employment in the social entrepreneurship sector, most of them are women and youth, and most enterprises employ people from marginalized groups. We know that in average, one social enterprise has 12 employees, excluding volunteers. It means that they employ about 12,000 Ukrainians, and you can say that social enterprises in Ukraine cover 41% of all the labor market in Ukraine. And they are also very active in the health sector and social services provision. And now, if we consider the quantity of data, 21,600,000 of public funds are remitted from the state budget as unemployment benefits, which accounts for 4% of the annual budget for unemployment benefits in Ukraine. If we assume that all people who are employed at social enterprises earn a minimum wage, the taxes that are received by the government and the state include over 11 million hryvnia, which is 12% of overall tax receipts of individual payroll tax. We have also analyzed other figures, and we came to the conclusion that I don't want to overload you with facts and figures. Is capable of contributing 3 billion hryvnia annually. It means that this is 0.05% of the Ukrainian GDP, but that still is higher than average figures from the country. Social activities, social enterprises are very considerable and significant, and the annual indicators in terms of employment, and that is one of the key indicators for social enterprises. Is 87,000 of employees, and that is 20% of all people employed all over Ukraine. According to this research, the social enterprises provide social services to 80 persons from marginalized groups monthly. It means that that accounts for 960,000 annual. 36% of social enterprises spend their profit on social purposes. That means that social enterprises spend an average 14 million yearly. And it means that social enterprises, social business in Ukraine is very well developed, and it is the sector that is quickly developing. That is the sector of Ukrainian economy which is growing fast and that's also social work. But unfortunately, it is not included into the legal framework, and it is not recognized by the state. From the point of view of the government, social entrepreneurship is considered as the new mechanism for employment of people with disabilities. And of course, it's very important to promote entrepreneurship in accordance with the concept included in the white paper. But we believe that that might be quite a long way. It might take a while of the social entrepreneurship development in Ukraine, and we believe that there is a good shortcut. So we think that the legal framework should change in three steps. The first one is the definition of social enterprise, and then add the tools to support social enterprises. But speaking in general, I would like to thank you for your work and for this thorough preparation of the paper, and hopefully we will cooperate in future and implement the concept. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivan, for your comments. Just a couple remarks on that. We looked into the experience of 11 countries as our focus group and looked into many more countries, and we were not able to find entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs enjoying government support from the state. If you are in the know of any specific example, we would be mostly grateful to you for sharing it. Well, social enterprises are known for the democracy of the decisions making, and at least two people have to be among the founders. There are specific requirements to that in Poland, for example, regarding the minimum duration of the operation, number of founding members, etc. There are lots of countries offering loan facilities to social enterprises and CSOs. We have economic agents, CSOs in Hungary, for example. There are organizations there that are fully fledged social businesses. You mentioned some impending legislative changes regarding enterprises set up as social businesses, but the framework concept we are talking about now speaks about exactly entrepreneurial activities carried out by public associations and CSOs. It is not to say they will be entitled to setting up some organizations and regulate them as commercial entities. Alexander, who spoke before you, he said that in the event of income overshooting the threshold of 1 million might be one of the indicators, a substantial one actually, which will automatically bring them into the group of VAT payers. For many social entrepreneurs trying to solve social issues, 1 million hryvnias threshold is a substantial amount actually. But anyway, thank you for your comments, and I hope that during the process of preparation of the concept, we will try to cater also to your concerns you've just expressed. Thank you, Ivan, also. At the beginning, I said that questions will be welcome, and at the very least on our Facebook group on legislative aspects of social enterprise, there are questions. I think they are mostly for Svetlana Glachenko from the Ministry of Economy. Maxim Latsiba asks, in which way will the government support social enterprises? Also, okay, suppose we have you in the registry, how it might help you? And the range of measures of state support, like loan facilities, preferential loan facilities, maybe something related to increased thresholds before going to the VAT payment group, or personal income tax limits, other particular economic and financial fiscal measures to support. We would really appreciate Svetlana saying something of that before we give the floor to our international experts. Yes, I'm here. I hear you. Just briefly on those questions, because they tackle a variety of areas, not just social enterprise as such. And also they pertain to different scopes of competence of various authorities. Well, the strategy and the action plan are in the process of their development. So later on, we will expect the concept to be approved. Before that, I would say it would be premature to discuss these matters. I can assure you that we, with my colleagues, will use this white book to refine our positions on that, as I mentioned in my address. In respect of the financial support from the banks, we've heard a range of positions today on the matters, and we definitely need to hear from financial institutions themselves, from the banks. I think it will clear out in the process of real work, so actually, no specific comment at this point in terms of expected government support. to social enterprises. Thank you, Svetlana. So anyway, we can be satisfied that you are at least considering the topic. Yes, we do. Okay, thank you. And we are good to go to hear from our foreign experts, international experts. Let's give the floor first to
Союзу. Пане Карел, розкажіть, будь ласка, на даний момент, який правовий статус соціального підприємництва є в Європейському Союзі? Ну і оскільки ми зараз всі стикаємося з проблемою COVID-19, то хотілося б почути, чи були прийняті якісь норми додаткові чи директиви Європейського Союзу для соціальних підприємців в період пандемії. І якщо ви приймали якісь нормативи, чи які саме додаткові фінансові та інституційні інструменти використовуються для підтримки соціальних підприємств в Європейському Союзі? Дякую.
Hello, thank you very much. Good morning to everybody there in Ukraine. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very honored, as I was also present last year at your conference in Kiev. I also want to congratulate you on the work carried out on the white paper. I think that's an incredibly important initiative. It's very nice to see that you will interlink many different actors from the political level, but also from the sector, academics, and so on. I think that's incredibly important because to have a good approach, let's say, to the social economy or social enterprise or social business world, you really need all these different angles. To come back to your question about legal entities, you know that in Europe there is no single legal entity available for social economy enterprises or social businesses. If I should say the most known one and the legal entity that is used most is definitely a non-profit association. I think that's also the case in Ukraine if I heard the discussions. But there is also a very strong movement of cooperatives, for example. So many member states have designed a cooperative legal status. Specifically to support the details, for example, such as democratic participation, such as asset locks in the investment of cooperatives. Besides that, we have seen that, for example, in the Netherlands or in Spain and Portugal, foundations are also used a lot as a legal entity for a social economy organization. So that is another one. And then we see that many countries have developed very specific legal entities. For example, on work integration social enterprises. That's what we also call inclusive enterprises, or the enterprise that employ people with a disability or employ people with a distance to the labor market. This is not a fact in every country, but we see that countries sometimes develop very specific legislation to support such enterprises, and they sometimes give them a specific legal entity or a specific grant scheme to help them in this work being carried out. And then I have a last one, which is basically the for-profit business. And if I heard well in the discussion, this is also a discussion in Ukraine, whether for-profit businesses can also become social enterprises, can become social businesses. And that is, of course, very depending on the capital structure. If there are some extra let's say safeguards built into the business, but if this is an open form, just a limited liability company, there is no guarantee from the government that this will protect the very specificities of a social enterprise. So it does not mean that a social enterprise cannot use this for-profit model, but there are no safeguards. So for us, we see many social enterprises also operating in this for-profit, but they built in extra measures themselves to protect their own business model. Of course, there is always a risk, and that is, by the way, not only for the for-profit business model of mission drift. That's what we call when you start initially with the good intentions of a social enterprise. You have a sustainable mission. You try to have a participatory governance model and so on and so further. But along the way, when success is, for example, increasing, then some people want to have more profitable activities, not profitable activities, but activities that gain more profit for the individual. And then we are going away from this more democratic, more mission-oriented, more socially oriented business model. But this is also the fact in cooperatives, for example. So it's not only for-profit businesses that are facing this issue. So I hope this responds somehow on your question on the legal entities. One important thing I want to highlight on the legal entity, it's very important to have a suitable legal entity to operate. But what we see is sometimes that there is so much focus on the legal entity that many other characteristics are some kind of forgotten or not put in place yet. So a legal entity is just a tool. It is not the ultimate solution. It's not because you have, for example, obtained a law that gives you a legal entity for cooperatives that the cooperative world will be very fruitful, that it will thrive. To be very honest with you, we have also a European cooperative legal status, but we see that it's not used a lot. So it's not because this is existing that it's so popular. There are many reasons why, and that is of course some issues in the internal market, also the relation with the member states, etc. But it's not because you just provide the legal status that many enterprises will use it. It should also be other policy types that are very important. There we go more to the broader context of a social economy or a social enterprise. Well, it's also about visibility, it's recognition, it's also financial support. And there if you allow me, I will bridge slightly to your second question, which financial instruments should be in place for a good social enterprise world. I think it's very important to give access to finance, not only in terms of subsidies and grants. I think subsidies and grants are very important, but also access to investment capital. So I mean loans or even equity. We see today that social enterprises have the perceivement of carrying more risk in their company. So banks are not trusting them to give them a loan or charging very high interest rates to give them a loan. And that is a very big issue, which means that many of the social enterprises are having difficulties to get access to such investment capital. Therefore, the European Commission has installed a specific guarantee fund, which is called the EASY Fund, so the European Fund for Social Innovation and Employment. And this gives the guarantee to the bank to convince them to give the loan to the individual entrepreneur. When the individual social entrepreneur is not able to pay back the loan, the commission, the state will intervene to support the bank and pay a part of the loss. So this should really create this demand for investment capital. This would create also a social finance, let's say, market. And solve the problems for access to finance for these many social entrepreneurs. This is about investment capital. The second one, and that's what I really need to emphasize, given the fact that many social entrepreneurs are serving the social good, are really serving, for example, marginalized communities and groups, they need to be supported by grants. Because the state, if the state is not doing it itself, they should support businesses to do it for them. And there, it's really important to also stress that the role of the state should stay also important. You cannot privatize and just make private all these social services that are actually in the public interest. So social entrepreneurs should be a partner, but should not be left alone and solve this by only private money, because that is never going to happen. We have seen really massacres in some European countries about that, where they completely came back from this policy to privatize all social services and so on and so further. I think there's really a need for a good pact between this social enterprise, social economy world and the state, and have also a very structured funding model available for that. And the last point I want to raise here is the role of public procurement. The government is procuring so many contracts to the private sector that it should be possible to also have an advantage for the ones that are procuring more socially, that are providing social services, for example, or environmental sustainable messages in their business model. And that is really something that a government can also push to include social clauses when they are procuring to the private sector. The Commission has done done a lot of work on this, on making available, making the opportunity to implement social clauses in public procurement, and that is really something that can help the social enterprises and social businesses at large. I think I hope I gave you some hooks with my intervention. I hope you reach out again to me if you want to have more specific details, but I had no more time to complement. So thank you very much for your time, and I wish you a very, very nice event today. Thank you.
Дякую, пане Карел. Ну,
Thank you, Karel. Traditionally, Valerie starts with comments. Thank you, Karel, for your presentation on European experience. From what I understood, we've been able to take into account some of the things you've mentioned about the EU. You might have probably heard of a number of like focus group of countries, Ukraine neighbors with, and others that we looked into when making this white book. We also looked at the experience of Turkey, and we looked into experience of other EU member states. Definitely, we know the non-profit, not-for-profit status. We know of the cooperative societies. It might be harder for Ukraine to use this cooperative society format, by the way, in terms of financial problems and capacity, or rather incapacity of the state to provide social businesses with investments, with impact investments, whether in grant subsidies or loans. Well, we will try to include it in our concept of national policy implementation for social business support. Thank you. Thank you, Karel, again. And please welcome Tammy Darcy from Ireland. I think there will be more practical questions on the national strategy of social enterprise in Ireland, adopted last year. And some of the questions to you, Tammy, is about how the document was approved, if you want, looked on by social entrepreneurs themselves in Ireland. What was the reactions to the document? And second question about the pandemics. Has it had any impact on social businesses in Ireland? Has it compelled you to have some additional measures of support?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. I think that you just introduced me, but my Ukrainian is not so good. So I'm happy to be here this morning to talk to you about the work that we've been doing in Ireland for the last little while. I do have some slides. Is it possible to share? Okay, no problem. I have them printed out. So just to talk to you a little bit about the work that we've done in Ireland over the last few years, it has been a really exciting and interesting time for social enterprise. My own background, I am a social entrepreneur. I run an organization called the Shona Project, which offers support and empowerment programs for teenage girls in schools and online. And we are an award-winning organization. So I have a lot. Oh, perfect. Thank you for my slides. You can skip on to the next one. But so I have a lot of experience in running a social enterprise myself and the challenges that come with being a social entrepreneur. In July 2020, just a few months ago, I was part of a group which formed an organisation called Social Enterprise Republic of Ireland, which we call SERI for short. And our organisation was formed from a call within the social enterprise sector here for a united voice. So there's a lot of disparity in the sector between what we might call the bigger social enterprises that might export and employ lots of people, and then some of the smaller social enterprises. And there's a gap there in terms of a united voice, but also knowledge share, representation at government level, and promoting supports that the sector needs. So on the next slide, you can see just a little brief history of social enterprise in Ireland. We have a deep-rooted social enterprise sector, which came from, we have a word in Ireland called meitheal, and meitheal is an old part of Irish culture where when at certain times of the year all of the community would come together to help on farms to bring in crops for the benefit of the whole community, and that's a deep-rooted Irish tradition. We also have, I think, the largest amount of credit unions anywhere. There's nobody that has more credit unions than we do. And we also have our national games, which have emerged into a social enterprise. So you may or may not have heard of hurling, which is our national game, and that is run by the Gaelic Games Association, which is in itself a social enterprise, one of the largest that we have in the country. So there has always been a focus on the organic development of the social side of social enterprise. And now that the social enterprise sector is growing and starting to scale and become more recognised, we believe that we need more supports on the enterprise side of social enterprise and to allow social enterprises to scale. So if you just look at the next slide, I'll just introduce a little bit about our policy. So we have had in Ireland over the last 10 years an organisation, just an informal group of very well respected stakeholders in the social enterprise stake, which formed the social enterprise task force. And for 10 years, they were very much involved in promoting the need for social enterprise policy or strategy. And they've worked very closely with government. It's just worth noting as well that the social enterprise sector in Ireland sits in the Department of Rural and Community Affairs. And with a lot of our counterparts in other countries, it actually sits in the enterprise or business or job. So it's just interesting that it sits here. But the Social Enterprise Task Force worked very closely with the department to come up with and launch a social enterprise policy, which was launched in November of last year, 2019, not that long ago. How that policy was created was that the department put out a call for submissions from social enterprises and key stakeholders, and they had over 100 submissions for that document. Lots of differing viewpoints on what a social enterprise does, the value that we create, and what emerged is what is now our final social enterprise policy. If you just flick on to the next slide, please. One of the areas that there was a lot of discussion around was about the definition of social enterprise in Ireland, and it's something that even now that we have a national definition, still is discussed. So the definition in Ireland is it's an enterprise whose objective is to achieve a social, societal or environmental impact rather than maximising profit for its shareholders. So it's a not-for-profit organisation, and we would have previous to that had organisations that would have been for-profit but still created social impact. I know in the UK at least 51% of profits need to be reinvested back, but here it's the complete not-for-profit model. And even at that, some people would say that we are for profit, but it's just what we do with that profit. So there's still a lot of kind of disparity around the definition. The second part of the definition is that we pursue our objectives by trading on an ongoing basis through the provision of goods or services and reinvesting the surpluses. So there's no quantification about what percentage of those of traded income should be and what percentage could be from other sources, grants, philanthropy. And we would have quite a few social enterprises that do have charity status here. And just to reiterate what Carl said about the legal definition, that is also a challenge for us in that we have our closest thing that we have is a company limited by guarantee, which would cover charities, social enterprises, and other types of organizations. And then we also have in the definition about the accountability, having a board, if it's dissolved, that we transfer assets to another organization. So that's the definition that was finally pinpointed and defined in the policy. So we do have people who are creating social good but would not be classed under the definition as a social enterprise. The objectives of the policy, if you could just flick on 2 slides, please. They outlined 3 objectives, the first one being to build awareness of social enterprise, and that's something that we're working quite closely with at the moment. I myself chair the National Committee for Raising, the Subcommittee for Raising Awareness of Social Enterprise, and again, lots of conversations about what that means, who our targets are, who needs to be aware of social enterprise. Is it a general awareness within the public, or is it particular targets around public procurement, around business opportunities, education, local government? These are all specific targets that we're working very hard to raise awareness of. The second objective is growing and strengthening social enterprise, so that's creating market opportunities and support, especially during COVID, because we found as social enterprises that we fell through cracks where charities got certain supports and businesses got certain supports, and a lot of our members didn't fall particularly under one of those criteria, so they didn't get the support that they needed, although that has since been rectified. And then the third objective is to achieve better policy alignment, so making sure that social enterprise is considered in all government policy and all future conversations about the supports that are needed, even due to our national budget. So they're the 3 objectives which are very, very helpful. And now as a sector, we're trying to work very, very closely with government to start implementing these policy objectives and making sure, which is one of the challenges, that every social enterprise in Ireland is reflected in the implementation and is benefiting from the implementation of the policy. There are for sure a few challenges. So the first one is that there needs to be a lot of co-production and cooperation and partnership in the implementation of any policy. It needs to be owned not just by the department, by the government department, but also by the yourself, which need to have ownership of it. What we do very well in Ireland, which is a real strength of ours, is storytelling. And for us, telling our story as social enterprises and being able to showcase the value that we contribute to society and the economy is going to be a key part of raising awareness here in Ireland. One thing we really need here is data. We have no data on the social enterprise sector. We have never done a national census, and that's again something we're working towards. And we feel that until we have that data, it's very difficult to measure anything. It's also very difficult to put arguments and cases to government about the supports that we need, because we don't have a full understanding, while we do maybe anecdotally or through stories from our members, that look, what markets do we sell to? Do we sell to consumers? Do we sell to business? Or do we sell to public contracts? And we don't have a really good understanding of that yet. We don't have an understanding of the size, the average size, how many jobs we create, and the actual financial value that we create to society. So that will be our next step here in Ireland. We'll be undertaking a big project to measure our sector and to have a really good overview and understanding of how it works and who we are. Another challenge is creating market opportunities for social enterprises, and until you have a good understanding of what a social enterprise is, we can't really promote to businesses the value of maybe doing something like a buy social campaign. We need to make sure that the supply will meet any demand that we create and for that reason we're starting small and looking at under the threshold small contracts or discretionary spend from business and trying to create that awareness and those relationships with a view to building in more procurement targets across businesses and in terms of public procurement as well. And then obviously the main challenge at the moment is COVID. We have been hit here in Ireland just as the rest of the world. We see so many social enterprises struggle at the moment. My own social enterprise would have been, our key customers would have been schools, and the schools are closed at present, or they've just reopened, but they're not engaging with external bodies as much as they would. So it has really hit us, and we have had to innovate and find new ways of creating the impact, whether that's online or through parents groups or through social media. So looking at the beneficiaries of our organization and just finding new ways. And they're the main challenges, but it has been a very interesting and exciting time for Ireland in many, many ways in terms of social enterprise. And, you know, we do note that in times of great challenges, there also come great opportunities to innovate, to partner and to learn. And we're trying to stay positive. And that's the update from Ireland. Thank you so much for inviting me, and well done on a fantastic event.
Дякую, Тамі, за чудову презентацію. За традицією, кілька слів Валерію Кокотю.
Thank you for your wonderful presentation. And now Valery Kokot will give his comments. Thank you, Ms. Darcy, for sharing your experience and for sharing Irish experience. And you know, for our group, it is very important to hear about that, even though Ireland was not included into the list of countries where we researched social entrepreneurship, but we looked through a number of strategies for social entrepreneurship development, including Irish documents. I remember that there was a document up to 30 pages long, and you know, this is the document that resembles this white paper for social entrepreneurship development, where the same things have been outlined that you mentioned, the improvement of the awareness raising about social entrepreneurship, strengthening the role of social entrepreneurs and their opportunities, and then devising proper policies for social entrepreneurs. And you know, we have quite a few commonalities. You are learning from other countries as well as we do. So thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you. Thank you, Tammy, once again. I would like to remind you that unfortunately we ran out of time, and even we add into the next session a bit. So I'm very grateful for your thoughts and for sharing your vision of social entrepreneurship development in Ukraine, and thank you for perspectives from the EU. And I would like to thank Valery Kokot for presenting white paper. I would like to thank Svetlana Hlenchenko from the Ministry of Economic Development. I would like to thank Alexander Sanchenko, member of Ukrainian Parliament. I would like to thank Ivan Kamenko for his insights from the organization. And I would like to thank our international experts, Carl van der Porten and Tammy Darcy from Ireland. Thank you for your presentations. And thank you for sharing the way social entrepreneurship is developed in the EU. And Mr. Valery, I would like to ask you the following. Is this the final version of the white paper, or are you open to suggestions? Of course, we are open to suggestions. I would like to remind you that this white paper is available at Social Business in UA website. It's open access, and the authors of this publication are ready to receive feedback from social enterprises especially, and we heard that Ivan Kamenko mentioned 1,000 social enterprises working in Ukraine, and so that we do not have doubts whether it's 1,000 or not, we would like them to be more active in terms of reaching common ground in understanding of social entrepreneurship in Ukraine. And I would like to say that making social entrepreneurship formal in Ukraine is discussed not only during the conferences and not only during the meetings of the task forces. This is the issue that is high on the agenda of various discussions. So please stay tuned. There is the Facebook group for social entrepreneurship in Ukraine, and also social business in UA has relevant information as well. And I would like now to pass on to Natalia for prize awards. Thank you.
Передане слово. А я знову вітаю вас на нашій призовій перерві. І сьогодні ми розігруємо другий наш приз, який ми розігруємо, це поясна сумка від бренду соціального підприємництва Remark. Поясна сумка більш відома у народі як сумка-кондукторка або сумка-бананка. Незамінний атрибут, якщо ви любите жестикулювати так само багато, як і я, і вам постійно потрібні руки. Ви можете її носити ось тут, або ж на поясі, або ж через все тіло, для того, аби було максимально зручно. Хто такий Remark? Це соціальне підприємство, яке робить свої сумки, рюкзаки, а також інші смарт-вироби з перероблених рекламних банерів, а також рекламних сіток. Рекламні банери і сітки досить швидко виходять з ладу, тобто ми використовуємо їх досить короткий період, і після того вони дуже довго перероблюються, так, розлагаються у ґрунт. Тому у нас до вас питання. Скільки саме потрібно часу для того, аби подібна рекламна банерна матерія, так, цей матеріал, скільки потрібно, аби він перетворився на ґрунт, тобто повністю розклався? Отож, правильну відповідь на питання, скільки потрібно часу, аби рекламний банер повністю розклався у ґрунті. Правильну відповідь на це питання ви залишаєте у нашій події, яка називається Міжнародна конференція УФБ Social Business in UA. Там є у нас пост щодо цього розіграшу. Залишайте правильну відповідь, вибираємо з безлічі правильних відповідей переможця. Отож, повторюю, сумки Remark чекає на свого нового власника. І передаю далі слово нашим гостям.
Доброго дня, шановні друзі. Мої вітання всім тим, хто до нас доєднався, хто до нас
Good
доєднується.
morning, dear friends. Greetings to everyone who have joined us, and greetings to everyone who is still in the process of joining. And greetings to everyone who is now at the initial stages of social enterprising. We are here on online international conference for Ukrainian philanthropists Forum Social Business in UA. And our section is social entrepreneurship and local government direction for sites of the future. I would like to tell everyone who's watching us, you can watch the stream not only on YouTube, you can also watch us on Facebook, and you have a unique opportunity to ask your question during the session. It's quite easy. Just put down your question, and before you type in your question, just put the number of the section and the last name of the speaker to whom you address this question, and we will ask that question. So what are we going to talk about today? We will talk about successful business enterprises in Ukraine being the innovative tool for community development. We will talk about the existing programs to support social enterprises, and we will talk about this and even more in this session. So, dear participants, dear viewers, I'm very happy to introduce our speakers. So, Anna Gulevska-Chernish, the chairperson of Scilab Ukraine Civil Society Organization, she is working offline with me today. Hello, Anna. Maxim Martyanov, the head of Economy and Investment Department at Vinnytsia City Council. He is with us online today. Mr. Maxim, greetings to you and thank you for having joined us today. Hello. Tatiana Yurchenko. Tatiana Yurchenko, Poltava City Deputy Mayor on Executive Body Operations. Hello, Tatiana. Natalia Nesvat, head of Civil Society Union, Reintegration Center, Social Enterprise from the city of Cherkasov. Hello, Natalia. She is online with us. And Yuri Lopatinsky, the founder of Nut House Social Enterprise in the city of Lviv. Hello, Mr. Yuri. So, dear friends, as you understand, we have quite gender balanced session today, and I'm very happy about that. Probably you paid attention to the fact that we are quite well balanced in terms of the representatives from the government and from the local authorities and from business. I would like to remind our viewers that our session is number 2. That is titled Social Entrepreneurship and Local Government Interaction and Foresights of the Future. So don't be shy and ask your questions. I think it would make sense if we start with questions to Miss Anna. Miss Anna, I know that you are a civil society organization has held training sessions all over Ukraine with the participation of the local authorities and also executive authorities and also with entrepreneurs and those who are only thinking about starting their own business. Here's my question. Why is it important today for the city or for the region to have its own program to support social entrepreneurship, and how would the social entrepreneurs benefit from it? Thank you for your question. Well, yes, indeed. Thanks to the participation in the project of social business in UA for 2 years, we've been touring around Ukraine. And we've held idea garages and hackathons, and we've been to all oblast capitals of Ukraine. And from our experience, we have quite unique circumstances for the local authorities. And the previous discussion was dedicated to the white people. And we do not have the legal framework in Ukraine that would regulate the use of social enterprises in Ukraine. And that is neither good nor bad. That's just the way it is. So today, in order to promote growth of social entrepreneurship, this is a unique opportunity for the local governments to take the lead and to define the criteria and to define the areas in which social entrepreneurship would be developed in their localities. Since there is no legal restriction coming from the national level, this is the issue that could be resolved at the local level. And if local governments see it as the important task to support social entrepreneurship, if local governments would like to have more social enterprises that would undertake in solving certain social issue of the region or of the city or of the settlement, then it seems that the local governments could devise their own program to support this movement. And that is the condition that allows us to be ahead of the central level at the moment, to act quicker than the parliament, the cabinet We have already first fruits of these efforts. Successful stories I will share with you today.
Скажіть, будь ласка,
Yes, Anna,
бенефіт отримують саме
what
соціальні
would be the benefit
від
for
таких
the social entrepreneurs from this local program? Look into the international experience. And, we talked to representatives of Netherlands, Sweden, and also of countries that are closer to us, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, where they have the necessary framework tasks. We found out that if the local governments decide that they want to promote social entrepreneurship, the programs that are designed by the local governments, they create the opportunities for support social enterprises in different dimensions. There might be the educational component, for instance. As we do not have the opportunity to be formally trained in social entrepreneurship, there are just a few universities or schools that teach that. So the local governments could start the initiatives in teaching, say, business skills, so that all those who need it could own some skills and start their own businesses. Another thing which is important, it is the fact that local governments could provide targeted assistance for those who want to start their own enterprises, or they could support scaling it up. And we are talking about international experience as well. So at the international level, there are the opportunities to get training, and there are opportunities for scaling up your business. Another option is following the Swedish model. When local governments start programs that envisage certain procurement preferences and preferential treatment for social enterprises. As in Sweden, for instance, procurement has the special box to tick if you are a social entrepreneur or not, bidding for some tenders. And this is the policy for the local government, and it means that they are trying to encourage social entrepreneurs having access to the market. That's the way they are facilitating that access. It means that there are various support programs that directly or indirectly create the respective conditions. The local government could also promote social entrepreneurship, raising awareness, sensitizing citizens. And the European Union has developed the guidelines according to which local governments are entitled to design of their own programs. It is called the tool of assessment of local entrepreneurship. According to the EU guidelines, there are 7 areas that could be analyzed and included into the programs for supporting social enterprises. And if we take a quick look at those 7 areas, first and foremost, this is making social entrepreneurship more popular. It means that the local programs should contain awareness campaigns, some contests for social enterprises, and all that could be included into the operations of the economic departments or other units of the local government. It also includes the opportunity for the universities or high schools having researches conducted in social entrepreneurship. So that's the first area. The second area is the capacity building for the social enterprises. Speaking of the local level, the administrative services should be provided to the social enterprises that would simplify the way they operate. They should enjoy preferential treatment for their registration. Third area is access to finance, since in many countries, municipalities or rural governments have the programs for the special budgeted items for launching social enterprises. Those funds are available in the form of grants, or they might be in the form of investment that is later on returned to the local budget with a very low interest rate. Or that might be the fund for scaling up your business, and also access to the local market. It means that social enterprises should have access to the local stores. They should be able to sell their products, and they should have access to procurement procedures. And they need to have the opportunities to interact with the other business operators, and that they should be able to take part in local fairs, they should be able to present their products. And another component is education, informal education, accelerators, hackathons that are conducted by local governments and not by civil society, as it is happening today in Ukraine, but it is conducted by the local governments. So those are the main areas, those are the main components included into the EU guidelines that should be analyzed, and based on those components. One more component I forgot to mention, this is the social impact measurement, and also awareness raising of the social impact from the social enterprise. And there is the recommendation to have these areas included into the programs of the local government. Thank you, Ms. Anna. These recommendations you mentioned are, of course, very necessary and very relevant. I know that you took part in designing one of such projects in Ukraine, and you know that is the president for social entrepreneurship in Ukraine. And what was your experience of interaction with the local governments? What was it like in terms of communication? How was the perception for the local government? So let's speak of Vinnytsia. Oh yes, that's a unique experience. I'm happy that we are joined here by Mr. Maxim Martyan from the City Council. We spent a few weeks in Vinnytsia, and we have been working with the Vinnytsia city team to develop the first local program for social entrepreneurship enhancement. And we initiated this effort, and you know they ordered this support. And you know what was the most important in this experience? That was not just a program that was devised by just one person or two persons. That was the process with the involvement of various stakeholders. They were social enterprises engaged, they were CSOs engaged, they were activists engaged who are only thinking about starting their own social enterprise, civil society organization. And they were representatives of various departments of the authorities, including the legal department, economic department, finance department, and other departments. And, you know, this was the multiple stage process. Thanks to our a focus group, so we found out what is happening in the region, how many social enterprises are there in the region, what was the experience of these social enterprises, who was involved into this process. We didn't know that the next university that was relocated in Vinnytsia has a course in social entrepreneurship, and they had it for a few years already. So they gave us the information on what is happening in social entrepreneurship in the city. The next stage required the work with stakeholders. We were using the European tool, we were using the European facility, and the one that I mentioned, the assessment of social entrepreneurship, and we looked at what was happening in terms of support. What's happening with the access to finance? What's happening with the access to the markets? And we checked our reality, and at the same time, we were working on what is what are our aspirations and what do we need to do for the situation to get better. Thanks to this joint effort with more than 30 people engaged, we came up with a program that was later on supported by deputies of the local council, and this is the program with the budget that is for it, and I hope that neither COVID nor other political or economic turbulences would not derail this program, and this program would be implemented in the next 3 years to come. So, Ms. Anna, do you mean that in Vinnytsia there is the program that is fine with the recommendations? Yes, that's correct. Okay, Maxim, you know, Miss Anna has just outlined the whole pathway of the creation of this unique program that's created in Vinnytsia, the program to support social entrepreneurship. So, Mr. Maxim, here's the question to you, maybe a rhetoric one, but maybe of practical nature. So, why is it of a high priority for the authorities right now? What gave you the impetus? What became the driving force for this program creation and implementation?
Hi, friends, hi, colleagues. The City Council has been working for quite some time over this program development. As regards the implementation of the program of SME development for 2017 through 2020, social enterprise was among the priorities of it, based on which, in the end of 2019, together with experts from the Promise project, we started working over the program of social enterprise development.
Комплексне дослідження екосистеми підтримки соціального підприємництва було.
For that purpose, we had a survey carried out among social enterprises. We looked into some best practices, best experiences in the field. We had a number of meetings and events carried out to better identify the most immediate needs and necessities of existing social entrepreneurs and those willing to join at the moment. That way we collected necessary material to have the 3-year program finally adopted last May. At the moment, we are preparing for the first meeting of the Coordination Council for Social Enterprise Development in the city. Unsurprisingly, the pandemic-related quarantine measures do not help us with it, but nevertheless, we try to create, the most favorable conditions for social enterprise kickoff in Vinnytsia. The program contains some 45 projects in a variety of areas already tackled, like education, information awareness, raising, mentor support, some training measures, educational events, workshops, and seminars. But still, the most focus I'd like to outline concerns creating a harmonious and I'd say egalitarian system of social enterprise development in the city. We had some negotiations on that, and we reached some preliminary agreements on program implementation in the city. We spoke to the Future Development Agency in Kyiv to coordinate offline and online events in Vinnytsia to promote social enterprise program implemented in the city throughout September, October this year. The program is aimed at social enterprise development again. We are currently selecting speakers and participants for the program. The training course will be rolled out in 4 cities of Ukraine, Vinnytsia included. We have cooperation with the School of a project on methodological, particular support of social enterprise among young people. A range of educational events have been organized in city universities, again, to explain some basics of social enterprise and answer some questions. Last May through June, we had the first project implemented. The project was called the Workshop of Schooling Social Enterprise Initiatives. It was initiated by one of our CSOs in the city, and it involved pupils, 7th through 9th grades, pupils from city schools. The technical lyceum in Vinnytsia became the winner, and they were awarded a grant to implement their ideas. So this is it in the nutshell from me.
Пане Максиме, я щиро радий за Вінницю, щиро радий, що
Really glad to hear that, Maxim. I'm glad for Vinnytsia, for the city to become a pilot city, to have implemented the program on social enterprise support and development. I do hope you will really provide a good example for other cities across Ukraine. And my question to you, lots of social entrepreneurs, CSOs dealing with collaboration, interaction with the central, regional, local self-government have some qualms and uncertainties as to how to start this interaction. Could you tell us more how you've started, how you broke the ice with social entrepreneurs in your city to launch this cooperation? Local government and social entrepreneurs. Actually, ongoing communication is the key. Programs like this one cannot be conceived by, a sole initiative of the local government, for example. This should be a grassroots initiative from the very entrepreneurs themselves, and then the local or municipal governments may create a kind of platform to join those ideas, to work on them, to design some tool sets to solve problems identified. But again, the key component is ongoing communication, ongoing dialogue with social entrepreneurs, groups of interest, stakeholders, potentially able to contribute to setting up such enterprises. Thank you, Maxine. Dear friends, now the time has come to give the floor to Deputy Poltava City Mayor for local executive bodies, Tatiana Yurchenko. I don't know, you still have no such program of social enterprise support in Poltava, but I do know of municipal government efforts to collaborate with social entrepreneurs there. How you would describe this level of cooperation between the municipal governments, local social entrepreneurs? Are there any successes so far? Hi everyone, thanks for having me. In the scope of our strategy of social and economic development of the city, we have this line of activity related to social entrepreneurship. And yes, you're right, we haven't got any dedicated program of social enterprise development in the city yet. No specific events so far, but we on the other hand recognize that with the national level strategy of social economic development has people, communities in the center of it, and from here we safely can deduct that social enterprises are important. I'd like to thank you and organization for looking into this range of problems, for your assistance in offering educational programs on social enterprise at the local training center in Poltava. We also enjoy strong support of vulnerable groups because social enterprise is instrumental in helping them get better employment opportunities, moving to social enterprise. Actually, local government officials do have regular contact with social entrepreneurs, looking for those areas of activities that can be further developed. We do understand how hard and challenging the work of a social entrepreneur is. It's not as simple as just getting profits. It's about tackling the stated objectives and making them visible and making them exactly as people would like it. We can tell you that yes, we have some events like roundtable discussions, etc. We are open for collaboration with social entrepreneurs. We are not stopping at where you are, where we are. Last year we had a city festival exactly on the National Entrepreneur Day organized, where we had very nice communication with social entrepreneurs. We had them show their results, successes. We heard about their problems. We had an online forum recently to talk to our entrepreneurs in the city. So I'd say that as of today, we provide as much support as we are capable of as the government, local governments. We have our training center, which is very active in a variety of training opportunities, even at this time of quarantine. We have training facilities there that we offer for different training events, and we provide them at heavily discounted rates, to have these training events happen. This is how we go today. If any questions, we'll take them.
місяць
Thank you,
типу,
Titan.
незважаючи на те, що окремої програми підтримки соціального
So,
підприємництва не існує.
my understanding is that despite not having a dedicated program of social enterprise development, the municipal government in Poltava is in full contact with social entrepreneurs and is actively supporting them. Now, a question to you. What is your formula of an efficient collaboration between local
Ви знаєте, тут
governments
треба
and
сказати, щоб
social
я хочу
entrepreneurs? The
звернутися
formula of
до
success.
тих людей, які нас слухають,
I
бачать,
would
до
like to address
полтавської
those
громади,
who
громади
listen to us, who watch
інших
us,
міст,
whether in
що
Poltava
треба
community or
руйнувати
elsewhere in
ці
other cities.
стереотипи, які, скажімо так, роками
Guys, don't
складалися, що влада
dwell
закрита,
on old
непрозора, не готова
stereotypes. Get rid of them.
співпрацювати. Вважаю,
Stop
що
thinking that the
результатом,
government is
успішним
opaque,
результатом
non-transparent, not willing,
будь-якого проєкту
non-cooperative.
є
This is no longer the case.
відкрите
We are very
спілкування,
much
є
open
наявність
for new
того
projects,
конекту,
for
контакту
collaboration.
з громадськими організаціями,
We are ready to
влади
develop
чують
contacts
і
with CSOs. We are ready to hear you, and we are ready to do what you need us to do. We're ready to lend you this kind of support. We are ready to provide a platform, a bridge for collaboration.
Головне також тут повинна також включатися міська влада.
Definitely, the municipal government has to be there, has to be on board, and we assure you we are. We are on board. We are.
Певного успішного результату.
With joint efforts, we will be able to get the results, successful results we all want to get. Unilateral efforts are seldom efficient, or seldom bear the fruits.
І популяризувати, і просувати. Я хочу сказати,
let us collaborate, let us promote this good area of activity.
Я долучена до соціальних напрямків.
For the 2 years of my involvement in social matters and social
навіть не в
aspects,
рамках, скажімо так, сьогоднішньої зустрічі, але можу сказати, що це і різні грантові проекти, які були
I can tell you of a variety of grant-based projects we were able to implement, whether it is about education and training opportunities for socially vulnerable groups, to gender equality-related initiatives, to those on prevention of domestic violence. There's a range of topics of high relevance that we are already
Ця
tackling.
просвітницька діяльність, коли ми спілкуємося, коли
This
є
educational, this training efforts, if done properly by joint efforts between governments, the businesses, the activists, and civil society representatives.
Якщо говорити про те,
This
що
is
зі мною спікер
doomed to be successful.
бенефіти або преференції щодо соціальних підприємств, дійсно дуже
In
важлива
terms of benefits, or preferences for social enterprises, here we see a very important role of the government, the local level, for example.
тендерну документацію.
If there is a project implemented by local governments, when working on, say, tender dossier, when procurement, it is not hard to include certain qualifications, certain factors to allow social enterprises to participate, to avoid any discrimination for other participants, potential bidders. And here we would need the national level of support and legal regulatory framework for that, because in some cases, on some matters, local governments are not in a position, not authorized to do any preferential treatment for social enterprises. But with proper support in terms of the national legal regulatory framework, it might be better.
Зі сторони муніципалітетів на містах, і зі сторони держави, тільки тоді ми будемо
I
мати
think by
певний
joint
результат.
efforts, local
Тому що є
municipalities and the central
початок
government,
покладеності, це
legislature
дуже
might be
добре,
better
але
able to
щоб не було
make
такого
this line of
сталого у нас
activity flourish
сталої
and
позиції,
further
треба
expand.
робити якісь певні кроки
We
для
need to have a
подальшого
common
розвитку.
voice and we
Тут
need
ми
to be able to
повинні
make
вам
further
мати
steps
підтримку
to
держави.
ensure social enterprise development. And government, the central government, state has to support this. Thank you, Tatiana. It's my understanding that your current format of cooperation is there, that you already have some successes to boast with, and we hope that others will be able to capitalize on your opinions and on your experience. Dear friends, we had a chance to have a variety of visions and positions from a variety of cities, and now we have some real life social entrepreneurs to hear from. We have a representative from the Center for Reintegration from the city of Cherkasy, Natalia Nesvat. Could you tell us, Natalia, about your cooperation with local government? Any successes, any failures or challenges? Just shortly but comprehensively as possible. Hi. Thank you for the question, Rola. Speaking of how we came to be, we had a charitable organization and that eventually evolved into a center for reintegrated of homeless persons. And at some point in time, we found that these people need something more than just having the documents reinstated or temporary shelters. We came to this municipal council in Cherkasy with an idea of a workshop to repair, say, old furniture and household items which would work for profit, to be able to pay salaries to those working there. Quite a simple, even primitive idea. We had no idea in mind to have it as a fully fledged business operation. We had no idea of going like fully fledged entrepreneurs. But the local government did have an ear for us. They heard us. And back in 2014, we had our first social order place with it. And we were provided funds to open this workshop. We had possibility to buy equipment for it, to have it installed with our reintegration center. That's where our social enterprise started. We've developed quite substantially since then. Now we are in a position of being able to make new furniture. So the enterprise is developing, and 10% of its revenues go to upkeep the center. Wow, Natalia. Appears you initiated, you kicked off this cooperation with local government on the topic, right? Back in 2012, we had this discussion how to deal with homeless persons. And I would not say that it was our exclusive first move. It was like mutual, rapprochement, if you want, a mutual move in similar direction. Thank you, Natalia. Thank you for sharing your experience, for sharing it. Dear friends, I think this makes a wonderful example of interaction with local government and socially active entrepreneurs. Thank you, Natalia, with wishes of success to your endeavors. Let us hear from another social entrepreneur, meets Yuri Lopatynsky from Gorikhovy Deal Enterprise. Yuri, are you with us? Yeah, good. Tell us, Yuri, have you been able to establish good contacts with local government, local executive, local council to have your social enterprise developed? Yeah, let's go back to roughly 2010, 2011. That was the time when we set up against the will of the local government rather than in cooperation with them. We had the Center for Disadvantaged Women set up. We had no support whatsoever. There was no financial possibility from the local, the central budget for that. So we were able to finally register it as a social enterprise, and this provided us a possibility to develop sort of relationships with the local government, the regional government, the city government further on. I wouldn't say that we have any support from them to develop and upkeep our business component, but we do have the support for development of our social aspects. Particularly, we are refurbishing a residential building to make it like a temporary shelter for ladies victims of domestic violence, victims of crisis situations. We're also developing the coffee shop and catering services that we offer as commercial ones. And in this regard, we work as just normal business operator. We compete with others, and the city council procures these services from us from time to time. So, Yuri, am I right to understand that your way to better understanding with the local government took about a decade, at the very least, yes, or it could go even further from the moment when we started looking into the issue of homeless persons and vulnerable women victims of crisis and violence. Actually, now when I look at new social enterprises being set up in my city, when the local government already knows what it is about, my advice for the new coming companies would be that this is a long road and you need to gain your experience. It will take time. Okay, Yuri, how would you assess your cooperation with local government? Is it ongoing? Is it rewarding, mutually rewarding? Does it have any future sustainability? Well, it is more or less ongoing. I'm just not speaking just about some dedicated department at the local municipal government dealing immediately with the matters I'm in. But now we do have some quality discussions like with the municipal economic department, because now they understand that we are also a tax-paying entity that provides taxes for local community development. Without going into much detail, I can tell you that we enjoy certain support from the Department for Italian Policy, other divisions and units that are increasingly appreciating of what we are doing. So at the moment, we don't see any specific programs to support social enterprise in my city. I think when every social enterprise in Lviv has to comes to the municipal government to discuss their problems, I think for the most part, they will get some response. I think the more stability we see as social enterprise, the better it is for local government, because sustainability is also important for them. in terms of services and goods that we produce and offer. Okay, thank you, Yuri. Thank you for your experience, for your efforts, for your thorough involvement in social entrepreneurship, with wishes of success to you and your enterprise, with wishes of growth, prosperity, and future even better support from the local government, maybe even from some businesses. Dear friends, this is high time for us to finalize our second panel on interactions between social entrepreneurs and local governments. I'd like to thank you for being with us, for finding it possible to join us. Our panel discussion, again, carried out within the scope of the International Conference, International Forum of Social Businesses and Social Benefactors. I'd like to thank head of the Silabo Ukraine, Maxim Martyanov from the Vinnytsia, Tatiana Yurchenko, special thanks to you go as well. Thank you to Natalia Nesvat. Thanks go to Yuri Lapushinsky. And dear friends, we're going to give the floor to Natalia with another prize draw.